start in 1 minute, 1 second. All right, hello and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about why, again, so this is something that I know that I talk about a lot, but I feel like it's something that needs to be spoken about a lot because it's incredibly pervasive and it's an incredibly complex concept that we're going to have to work through in multiple different ways, and we're going to have to look at it in multiple different ways in order to work through it. And that is the idea that if we love ourselves for exactly who and what we are right now, that if we were to truly find that, like, okay, I'm good enough, I love myself, I'm worthy of love, I'm worthy of care, I'm worthy of being taken care of, I'm worthy of being loved, I'm worthy of feeling like I'm good enough. I'm worthy of feeling like I don't have to keep striving, and I don't have to keep achieving, and I don't have to keep becoming, and I don't have to keep fixing before I'm allowed to unconditionally approve of myself. That if I do that, that if I let myself have approval in who and what I am right now, that it's going to ruin my life, that it's going to make it so that I don't achieve my goals. It's going to make it so that I stay stuck in pain forever. It's going to mean that I don't achieve my potential and I don't become who I'm actually supposed to be. And that it will mean letting myself off the hook of things that really do need to change and things that really are bad and wrong and painful and objectively causing myself harm and causing others harm. And again, just this deep fear that we have that unconditional self-love means unconditional approval to destroy our own lives and to hurt everyone around us and just be terrible people, or like get stuck in pain forever. That it means I know that a lot of people here, I unconditionally love and accept myself, and therefore I unconditionally love and accept the pain that I'm in, or the physical pain that I'm in, the relational pain that I'm in, the terrible job that I hate, the place that I'm in, that if I love and accept who and what I am right now, that I'm going to be stuck in my pain and in my shit and in my bad habits and in my never achieving what I came here to achieve state, and that would be the worst thing ever. And that a lot of us really feel like the only way we're ever going to get better, the only way we're ever going to become good enough, the only way we're ever going to be loved by other people, the only way we're ever going to be safe, the only way we're ever going to achieve the goals we want to achieve is through self-hate, is through looking to fix and change and get rid of all the parts of ourselves that are holding us back from that. And the second thing is that in our world, right, the world that we live in, where the constant message that we're being told, the constant message that we're getting from literally every corner of society is one of telling us that we aren't good enough how we are. And that if we were to believe that we were good enough how we were, that this would be the end of civilization, that this would be the end of our capacity to be okay and our capacity to be safe, that this would literally ruin everything, right? We are told by the normal media, right? If you're not constantly striving, if you're not leveling up, if you're not having the newest thing and being involved with the newest stuff and all of this, that you're not good enough, and that this is bad and wrong, and that you're lazy, right? And a lot of the time it's like, right, if you're not contributing to society, if you're not moving up in your job, if you're not moving in the direction of, finding their relationship and then having kids and then raising those kids and then becoming whatever it is that society is telling us we need to become, richer, thinner, fitter, healthier, happier, more abundant, then that means that we're failing and we're not doing something right. And a lot of our modern spirituality is really focused around this idea of you're never good enough, right? You're never saved enough, you're never pure enough, you're never doing enough, you're never helpful enough, you're never in service enough, you're never holy enough, you're never calm enough, you're never present enough, you're never transcending your emotions enough, You're never kind enough. You're not love and light enough. There's that. There's the self-help and the personal growth world that's saying, right? Like, you aren't reaching your potential. You aren't becoming your biggest, highest self. That there's some pinnacle that you're supposed to be reaching that you're constantly achieving in your career and in your family life, in your spiritual life, that there's always something missing and there's always something lacking, and that when we feel that way, we're being told by self-help and self-improvement that the reason we feel like that is because we're not achieving enough, we're not striving enough. And it's just this constant, like I say, this constant drumbeat all around us, over and over and over and over and over again, that you are not good enough, and that the reason you're in pain, the reason your body isn't healed, the reason you don't feel satisfied in your career, or you're not making enough money, or you're unstable, the reason your relationship isn't the way that you want it to be, the reason your relationships aren't as healthy or as abundant or as just existing at all the way that you want them to, the reason your mental health isn't the way you want it to be or how you want it to be, or the reason that you're struggling or whatever. We're told over and over and over again that all of these problems and all of the pain that you're experiencing is your fault on some level. It's something that you're causing and something that you're just not fixing because you're not trying hard enough. You're not doing good enough. And this is the big thing that I really want us to take a minute and dial in today as being a root cause of our suffering. And the reason it is suffering is because it's out of alignment with truth, okay? Pain happens in reality. Pain is a real part of real life, and prolonged pain is also a real part of real life. So my definition of pain and cause and effect, real reality, is there are certain things in life that hurt. There are certain things in life that we have no control over that hurt, and that we can be in for a very long time because there's just not a lot we can actually do about it, because we have systemic issues, because there are genetic things that happen, because life is chaotic to a degree, and there are just some things that we don't understand and we can't get a hold of. And that's all pain. That's all. This is just reality working how it is. And even if there is something we can do about it, we have to figure that out, or it's difficult, or all of that stuff. To me, my definition of suffering is a misallocation of the cause of pain. So we keep trying to solve something, thinking this is going to fix my pain, when we're not actually tapping into the cause of pain. And therefore, we keep going at whatever we think the solution is. We keep trying to fix it. We keep doing the thing that we think is the solution to our pain, and it never works. And we're just constantly in this loop of doing what we think is going to get us out of pain and never actually getting out of pain, because we've misidentified the source of pain and we're blaming something that isn't to blame. We're trying to use a method of fixing the pain that is never going to fix the pain because it's not addressing where the pain is actually coming from. And that's when we suffer. Okay? When we're constantly trying to fix pain with a solution that's never going to fix the pain, that's when we're suffering. Okay? So what I want to say today is, for a lot of us, the reason we're suffering in life, so not necessarily why we have pain, but the reason we're suffering is because we keep trying to fix ourselves. We keep blaming ourselves, me, you, who you are, what your personality is, what your expression is, the way that you're eating, the way that you're moving, the way that you're speaking, for why you're in pain. And instead of being able to identify the actual cause of your pain, you're continuing to try to fix yourself, which is not the problem. And so over and over and over again, you're exerting all this energy and all this time and all this effort to try to get out of pain. And it doesn't matter how perfectly you do it. It's not ever going to matter how amazingly you are enacting your solution. It doesn't matter how long you stick to it. It doesn't matter how consistent you are with it. It doesn't matter how extreme you are with it. It's never going to relieve your pain because it's not the cause of your pain. Okay? We are still living in a world, especially in the Western world, where we're told over and over and over again, in consensus reality, in spirituality, everywhere, that our entire lives and our entire existence is 100% up to us. That it's a creation of our own, that everything's just a projection from our mind, that everything has been created in your life because of you, that everything that comes into your life is some reflection of your vibration or reflection of you on the inside, that everything that's happening in your body you created and that you can uncreate if you just eat healthy enough or do the right thing enough or whatever, that any problem in your relationship, any problem in your work, any problem in your life is down to a moral failing, right? And we're told that if we feel unsatisfied and if we feel insecure and if we don't feel safe in our world, we're not doing something right. Well, you haven't found your purpose yet. You haven't found your right career. You haven't found your highest expression. Because when you're living your highest expression and you're doing your right career and you're doing your biggest thing, it's all abundance and it's all magic and it's all everything just comes to you. And if that's not happening, you're failing. And it's because of you. It's you. It's you who are morally failing. Okay. So a lot of the reason many of us suffer is because we're taking this idea of personal responsibility. This idea of, if I just became my higher self, if I just improved myself enough, if I just fix the thing that's broken in me, all of my pain is going to go away. If I just find my highest purpose and my highest calling, the perfect diet, the perfect way of eating, the perfect way of communicating, if I just love myself enough, and if I just care about myself enough and respect myself enough, I'll find the perfect job, I'll find the perfect relationship, I'll get the perfect body, I'll know what my purpose is, and that'll be a very obvious and clear thing, and it'll be something I can monetize and show to the world, this is who I am and this is my purpose, and I will feel satisfaction and good. Okay. There is some truth to that. I'm not saying we don't have any power in our lives. I am absolutely not saying that we don't make choices and that our choices don't have an effect. Okay? Don't misunderstand me. We have choices and our choices do have an impact. Yeah? And as we're collectively awakening to trauma and as we're collectively awakening to the idea that we can have inherited programs and filters and how we view the world and how we've been making choices and everything that we've been doing that are out of alignment with reality, that are causing us pain. As we're waking up to the idea that there are systems, right? That there are actual systems that we were born into, that we did not create, that may, depending on who and what you are and where, how you exist, not support you in reaching your potential and support you in having a good life. And in many cases may be directly antagonistic to that, making it harder for you than it is for other people. We're starting to awaken to no, some of us genetically have bodies that aren't able-bodied, that don't have the same capacity as other people's bodies do. We're starting to awaken to the idea of neurodivergence and one way of being and one way of living and this way of achieving success just may not work ever for these people who don't fit into that kind of box. We're starting to understand that the systems of production that we live in that are completely based on machines, that are based on exploitative labor, that are based on the people at the top who own the means of production, exploiting the people under them so that they can create that huge wealth that they then share with the shareholders and not with the workers. As we're starting to awaken to all of this stuff, Hopefully we're starting to see that the people who are having massive monetary success in our system aren't just working harder and doing better than us, who are not. The people who are thriving, they're not just thriving because they made better choices than everyone else is making. They worked harder, they made better choices, they were more committed, whatever it is. They may have an element of some of those things, right? Again, we're not saying that the people at the top of our system didn't work hard. We're not necessarily saying that they didn't innovate, that they didn't do great things. But we have to take into account that they were invested in, right? That they got education and they had upbringings where they were safe or where they were at least given the opportunity to create safety for themselves. They weren't antagonized in the way that other people were antagonized. They had money to start the companies that they started. They were sent to university. They were able-bodied. They were neurotypical. Whatever it was. They had some sort of investment in them in some way that enabled them to thrive. And we're starting to say, okay, it's not that we have 100% control over ourselves. It's not that we all just arrived in adulthood with complete clarity on how reality works and what everything is and how to find our purpose and how to find everything that's great, and we're just choosing not to do those things. We're just choosing to sabotage ourselves. We're just choosing to hold ourselves back. We're just choosing to be lazy. We're starting to understand, no, that is not the case for anyone. No one woke up one day and was like, I think I could be a doctor, or maybe I'll get addicted to drugs. Which one would I like? I'm gonna get addicted to drugs. We still treat people. We still treat addicts. We still treat people with eating disorders. We still treat people with anxiety and depression and all of these things as though they were completely able-bodied, non-traumatized, came into their adulthoods with all the capacities and all the facilities and just chose to be like that. And they just need a motivational speaker to kick their ass and get them to stop being lazy and choosing the wrong thing. No. Hopefully we're starting to wake up to no. Something happened. Multiple things happened for someone to go from being born a child who's free and loving to being caught in a way of life that's very painful for them. You see? And even, and I know that this might be an unpopular opinion, but even when we look at the people at the top of the system and we see them and they hoard mass amounts of money and they exploit their workers and they are participating in a system that is blatantly harmful. And we can easily look at them and just be like, they must just be freaking evil. There must be just something wrong with them that they can do that. And they can buy their 80th yacht while the world goes through a pandemic. Right? We've watched this. And there are massive moves of people who want to eat the rich. And again, I still want to say, what were the conditions? What was the culture? What is the society that created that? Where did that come from? Those people didn't just burst out of nowhere, any more than the addict bursts out of nowhere. We are all a result, in many ways, of the world we've been raised in. And we're not taking that into account when we're trying to solve our problems. We're looking minutia, we're looking at the thing that's happening right now, and we're going, that's bad, get rid of it. So, right, we're doing this to ourselves, and we're doing this at large, and this is why, for decades, we've been talking about this shit. You go back and you listen to people who were making commentary on what was going on in society 50 years ago. They were saying the same fucking shit that we're saying right now. Like, it is astounding what people were saying 50 or 100 years ago about society and how it was operating. It could literally be, you could be listening to somebody talk today. You'd have no idea where it came from. Because we've been doing the same shit over and over and over again. Because we're not learning that we're clearly not identifying cause. We're suffering individually and as a humanity. Because overall, we keep blaming the individual for the systemic. We, as a society, and as individuals, are stuck in our loops of suffering. In part, not 100% of it, in part, because we continue to blame the individual for problems that have been created by the collective, by the systems, by the foundations of how we live our lives. We are not saying the collective is suffering, therefore the system that the collective is trying to succeed within must be incorrect. If so many people are saying this system doesn't work for me, as in I'm not finding the stability, I'm not finding the joy, I'm not finding the goodness, no matter how hard I try, we need to start to say, okay, where are the flaws in the system then? If we continue to generate all of these problems, people who are addicted, people who are suffering, people who are not able to get their needs met, people who are continually antagonized, we keep saying it's the individual who isn't trying hard enough. The system is fine. The way we're doing things is fine. Because look, we have some billionaires. We have 0.01% of the population that's thriving in this way of being. And therefore, there must be nothing wrong with it. And if you're not having success, well, there's proof that success is possible. So go to your Tony Robbins retreat, get all fucking fired up, and become a lion warrior boss babe, and go find your purpose, and then you'll be rich too. That's what we're doing. Over and over and over again. We keep blaming the individual for problems that are systemic. And all of us, on some level, have internalized that message and are doing it to ourselves as much as society is doing it to us. Because again, we have to remember this is part of what conditioning does. Conditioning teaches you to do to yourself what your abusers did to you. Conditioning teaches you to do to yourself, to be your own prison master. What was done to you? So that eventually the people who did it to you don't even have to do it to you anymore, because you will take over for yourself. That is what our conditioning has done. We can be conditioned to be the kind of people that love and nurture and care for ourselves after our caretakers no longer are doing that for us, right? Our caretakers could condition us to care for us the way that they cared for us, and to care for one another the way we were cared for, to take over when we become adults for what they showed us. Conditioning does not have to be a bad thing. We can be positively conditioned. We can positively condition our children to be resourced, to be self-loving, to be kind, to be curious, to be brave, to be good learners. We can condition our children those things so that when they start to become adults, which is what's naturally supposed to happen, when they start to take over their lives, right? They start to take over being the driving force in their own lives. That's what they're conditioned to do. They're conditioned to be on their own side. They're conditioned to be nice to themselves. They're conditioned to listen to their bodies and their emotions. They're conditioned to be logical and figure things out and to assess. We can condition that. Most of us were not conditioned that way. Most of us were conditioned that society has a right, out there is right. What other people think of me is right. What other people approve of and don't approve of is right. And if I don't fit into that, there's something wrong with me. Most of us were conditioned to not express our emotions. Don't ever feel your body. Because again, if you did, you wouldn't want to do all the things you're supposed to do. You wouldn't want to be the person you're supposed to be. And then what? You'd rebel. You'd quit. You wouldn't follow the system. Right? We were all conditioned on some level, not all of us at the same degree, to reject ourselves, to deny ourselves, to assume flaw in ourselves when we're in pain. And this taking of personal responsibility for most of us has gone way too far. We are not taking responsibility. We are blaming ourselves for things that are not our fault. We're trying to force ourselves to fit into systems that don't work and will never work for us. We're trying to fix a problem in ourselves that isn't a problem in ourselves. We're trying to find our purpose and our meaning and our fullest expression within a world system that's not set up for that. Okay? We do not live in a society that is set up for all of us to achieve our potential by any stretch of the imagination. I really, really, really want to get this across. The parameters for what you have to be and what you have to do in order to have financial security so that you can feel free and safe to express yourself generally and to live your life. And let's be honest here, right? We all have our traumas and our stuff that's holding us back, and when we don't have the base security of knowing where our food is going to come from, trying to process our traumas, trying to go get therapy, trying to find that sense of stability and that sense of calm so that we can logically figure things out step by step is monumentally harder than when you know you have that paycheck coming in. When we're in a body, and I've been there, that's chronically ill, and we don't know what's wrong, and no one can tell us what's wrong, and we're sick and we're scared all the time, trying to find that stability for okay, what's my next step? What am I here to do? What's my purpose? What do I want for my life? Right? When you're in that chronic pain, when you're in chronic fear that your life is ending, it is way harder to do these things than it is when you feel physically able-bodied. Okay? So again, I know I talk a lot about these self-love tools and these being with yourself and just find your next step and all that stuff. And I want you to know that I'm speaking to you as someone who also knows what it's like to be doing that from a place of massive insecurity. I have also lived my life for a while, not anymore. I will absolutely admit that. Currently, right now, I am not financially not okay. I am financially stable because of my husband, and that makes a huge difference in my life. I am not up here to pretend that everyone who's also financially unstable and all of these things can have the same level of peace as me, the same way that I have it right now, because I don't know if that's true. Right? I know that to a degree, that my tools are really helpful, And also, it's really helpful to know that I'm going to be okay financially, right? I still have all the body stuff. I don't know if I'm going to die tomorrow. And that makes things scary sometimes. But, right, not having the financial part of that, and it makes it a little easier. We have to be real about that. So again, in our world that is not set up for everyone to have financial security, let's be honest about that. Like I said, the parameters for what our system says we're going to reward, pretty fucking narrow. Right? Like this whole narrative that everyone can just find their purpose and that's going to equal abundance is a total lie. Not everyone is going to find a thing that they love doing, that they feel like is their purpose in life, and that is going to translate to an income. That's ridiculous to think that. Because our society does not equal opportunity value everything. What does our society value? Technology, entertainment, food, right? And the idea of being wealthy. If your purpose doesn't fall into one of those four things, why are we saying you could still be like ridiculously wealthy or even like incredibly stable? We don't know that. And then again, what about the people whose purpose has nothing to do with their work? What about people whose purpose is to be a mother or a father or just a caretaker of children? What about the people whose purpose it is to be the community listener? What about the people, you see what I'm saying? There are things that fulfill us, that fill us with meaning and purpose and hope, that are non-monetizable at all. There are people out there who their purpose, the thing that lights them up, the thing that they love doing, is reading books. That's never going to be monetizable. You see what I'm saying? And then again, at the end of the day, our system is not set up to say everybody deserves enough so that they can figure out what their purpose is and then offer that to the world. Our system is set up in a way that says, you prove your worth to the system. Here's how the system works. You figure out how you fit into it. And if you don't, fuck you. That's how our system is set up. And then we now have been conditioned to say if the system has said fuck you to us, it's because we suck. It's because we're not trying hard enough. We haven't found our purpose yet. We're not hustling enough. We're not doing it enough. Because look, Bill Gates is there. Look, there's always someone we can look to and say, well, they did it, so I should be able to do it. And if I'm not doing it, if I'm not feeling fulfilled, if I'm not feeling filled up, it's because of me. And here's the real truth that, again, what society tells us is going to make us happy and feel fulfilled is a lie. How many people do we need to see who achieve success in our system? How many more celebrities? How many more entrepreneurs? How many more people do we have to watch get to the top of our system and then crumble, kill themselves, have horrible anxiety, depression, drug problems? They get to the top. They have all the things. They are worshipped by society. And they are miserable. They are not happy. They are not fulfilled. They have all the resources and the time and the money in the world. And they're not happy. They're not connected. They're on their 80th divorce. What more do we need? that success isn't success, that what the world is telling us is purpose and meaning isn't. How much longer are we going to be fooled into the idea that our system works and that we are broken if we feel shitty within it? For as long as we are willing to unquestioningly reject ourselves instead of learning to accept who and what we are, so that we can start to figure out what reality is. This is the bottom line of why I think self-love is the foundation for changing everything we think is wrong with the world. Because until we have self-love, we are not going to be able to identify what is wrong with the world. When we don't have the sense of like, okay, no, my human life is valuable. It should be the system proving its worth by how much it supports me, how much it supports everyone. We need to look at the system and say, the system is failing. All of these people who are being left out of the massive wealth that has been generated by our system is proof that the system is fucked. It is not proof that we have a few great people and everyone else sucks. That's what we're looking at right now. That's what we're saying. No. We are still living in a world that measures value by how much a life generates wealth. How much an action generates wealth. How much a way of being generates wealth. Why do we feel unfulfilled? Because when we boil our lives, when we boil ourselves, when we boil our systems down to that which generates wealth is the only thing that has value, we are never going to feel fulfilled. We are never going to feel purposeful. We are never going to feel secure. We are never going to, because that is a fundamental misunderstanding. We are not operating from a fundamental truth and building our systems upon that. We have built our systems upon a lie. So everywhere we go from there is gonna lead to shit. And I think we figured that out. The people who are suffering in our system are getting shit. The people who are succeeding in our system are getting shit. The people who are our gurus in our system, shit. Like, hello, nobody is winning because the system is foundationally rotten. If we keep blaming the individual for not being valuable within a system that has a completely wrong, false, out of alignment definition of success and value, we are never going to feel secure and safe and good. And we are never going to create systems that even make that possible. So again, I'm not saying that the responsibility of society is to create a perfect utopia where no one has to do anything and everyone just sits around and drinks martinis and gets their UBI. That's not what I'm saying. Growth is still hard. Figuring out your life path and doing what you want to do and expressing yourself and figuring out your body and figuring out your relationships, these are all things that are worthy of being done. These are all things that require energy and effort. No one is saying that. What we want, no one is saying that a good life is a life where everything is just handed to us. I don't think that that would benefit us. I'm not saying that that's what we want, right? We know what it's like for the people who don't have to try. Their lives aren't satisfying either. There's a balance here. What we want is to look at the fact that we have created a society that has so much abundance of wealth, so much abundance of resource. We have so much technology and understanding at this point. There is no reason that our society cannot be built upon an idea of equity, that everyone gets an access to an education, that everyone gets access to basic resources, so that we can start to allow people to grow into what they were here to grow into, to what they are capable of. And then those people will give back to society what was invested in them. This is what we have to understand about how humans work. We don't want a handout. We want to be given opportunities so that those who have the capacity to grow into whatever they're going to grow into that, and then they give that back to society. Like this idea that if we just hoard and withhold, the cream will rise to the top because they will fight for it. That is fucked up. How many people have we lost? This is what we need to understand. How many people have we lost to poverty? To there wasn't an education. To the prison system. That were amazing people, that had potential to be amazing people, that were never given the opportunity. They didn't get the investment. They didn't have the safety. They didn't have the just foundational basics that a lot of us did in order to even consider achieving that. How many people have we lost? How many people have not had a nice life because they were the kind of person that just was gonna be satisfied having neighbors and a job and a hobby, and it wasn't ever gonna be this huge thing. And that was gonna be a very much good enough life for them. But they felt like for their entire lives that they were failing because they didn't get on Oprah. They didn't have this big thing. This is what we need to start to ask ourselves. We're not creating geniuses through withholding so that everyone has to fight to get what they want. We're just losing geniuses. We're just losing people. And again, it's all coming down to this conditioning that it's the flaw in us. That the people who are failing in our society, that the only reason we don't feel good enough is because we are lacking something. We are missing something. We are letting our fear take control. We aren't trying hard enough. We're playing the victim. Like I said, go back and listen to the things that people were saying about society 100 years ago, 50 years ago. It's the same shit. If this narrative was true, it's just up to the individual to make better choices, we would have a whole different world right now. Because how many of us have heard these messages? If this worked, it would have worked by now. We've all heard it. We've all tried it, right? All of us have gotten riled up by a self-help guru speech. All of us have listened to the meditation and believed, yes, I've just totally transformed my whole being through my meditation and I'm going to be my higher self. All of us have done the yoga retreat. All of us have done it. If that shit was going to work, it would have worked. We need to start to say, theory not lining up to reality. So what's reality? Okay, like I say, the first step. We need to stop blaming ourselves for our pain. And again, this doesn't mean that we don't have power over it. This doesn't mean that we can't make choices. This doesn't mean that we won't be able to change it in some way. This doesn't mean that there might not be some personal responsibility we can take. But we have to have a balance, again, of even being able to take real responsibility for the pain that we're in. Being able to really actually take responsibility. To see where we are playing a role in our own pain and where we can change. we have to have a foundation of loving ourselves. Because if we go in looking for how we're the cause of our pain from a place of like, what's wrong with me? I'm looking for my flaw so I can figure out how to fix me. We're never going to get anywhere because of how we've been conditioned. When we feel ourselves being rejected and blamed, our nervous system goes into lockdown. We have to start to understand this about ourselves. When we go in looking for how I am the cause of my pain from that place of blame and shame and guilt and just, I'm just not trying hard enough, I'm just not doing it right, I have the capacity to just be an awesome person and I'm just choosing to be shitty. We trigger ourselves into fight and flight. Our nervous system takes over, and what do we do when we're in fight and flight? What we've always done. We cannot change from that place. We can white knuckle our way into new behaviors for a little while, and we're gonna slingshot right back. And I think everyone's had that experience. We got really real with ourselves. We had a serious talking with ourselves. We said, fuck this, you're changing your behavior, no more doing that. We did it for a little while, and then what happened? We went back into it harder than ever. Because we're not recognizing that the behaviors that we're doing are meeting a need. It's how we're surviving. It's what we think we have to do right now to be safe and loved and okay. And the longer we withhold it from ourselves, the more afraid we get, the more scared we get, the more stuck we get, and then we get pulled back into it. It's like literally when you're craving vitamin C and you don't realize that's a need and you think I'm just addicted to oranges, so you stop eating anything with vitamin C. Eventually you get so starved for vitamin C, you will eat oranges out of the garbage. You will do any means necessary to get that vitamin C. And then you'll think, what's wrong with me that I keep eating garbage oranges? What's wrong with me that I keep eating these oranges that are covered in gross, that make me a little bit sick? If I could just stop eating these oranges, I would be better. Because you're not seeing, I have a need for vitamin C. I got rid of all the vitamin C foods in my diet, and now I only eat rotten oranges. Because that's the only source of vitamin C I allow myself. So what if I were to allow myself to eat real, fresh oranges, and then I don't need the garbage ones because I'm getting the need met in a better way? And as we do that, as we assume innocence in ourselves, right here, right now, how we actually are with all of our pain and all of our bad habits, and I'm putting air quotes around that because I don't believe there's a such thing as a bad habit. We don't sabotage. We don't do any of these things. We were conditioned that this is how you have to be to get what you need. We were conditioned to deny our needs. We were conditioned to try to get along in this society that doesn't work for us. We were conditioned to blame ourselves for not being able to fit in to what society says we need to fit into in order to be successful. And there are actual consequences when we don't. That's the other thing. This is not just all a mind game where when we realize who we really are and what we really want and what's really true, poof, society disappears. And I don't want to make it sound like that either, and I very deeply apologize if I've ever made it sound like once you realize your true self, life is just easy. A lot of the time, for a lot of us, we're going to realize our true selves, and then we're going to say, okay, I'm going to have to figure out the compromise. Because life and our society is not set up for humans to thrive. We don't live in one of the blue zones. The closest thing we have for life set up for humans to thrive is like the blue zones, where they're super high in resources, they're very isolated communities, where everyone works just enough and does the thing they do so that it fulfills its role in society, and then the rest of the time that they have is for leisure and self-expression and growth, and everyone is included, and everyone likes each other, and everyone takes care of each other. That's the closest thing we have to a society set up for human growth. Work is a means to an end. It's not an end in of itself. Production is not how we determine our value. A healthy society says, what do the people need? So what needs to be produced? What needs to be constructed? What needs to be distributed? And how do those things need to happen so that everyone has access to what they need? And then so that people can live. It's a means to an end. We meet our needs for production and distribution, not so that we can say, good, I've fulfilled myself. I did the most amount of planting seeds today of anyone today, so I won the day. Right? Like we've totally lost the plot. We still believe that finding how we are going to contribute the most to the means of production is going to bring us satisfaction. And it never will, because the point of the production is to get our needs met so that we can live. So it's great to love your job. It's great to love what you do, but it's never going to fulfill you, because that's not a life. And we live in a world right now that says you have to give your whole life to what you produce, and that should fulfill you. And if you don't, you won't make enough money to live for a lot of us. And that's why we feel so shitty, because that is a fraction of what makes a human life fulfilling. We have to stop buying into the lie that the thing that we do that provides the most offering to the means of production and consumption, what we can give, what we can produce, and what we can consume, is purpose, is value, is meaning, is a life. It is not. And that if you are suffering, if you have anxiety, if you have depression, if your body doesn't work, if you have messed up relationships, if you don't know what your purpose is, you don't know what your job is, blah, 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 it's all this failing in you. No. We need to start to say, I am what is of value. I am doing everything that I'm doing because it's the best I know to do to get my needs met in the system that exists right now. So what do I need? How can I start to nourish myself and show up for myself? And again, I totally validate that this is much harder to do when you are insecure. When you are financially insecure, when you are physically insecure, when you're relationally insecure. I get it. I am not saying this is easy. And again, our society tells us not to do this. Most of us, the way that we are getting on is by hating ourselves, so that we will continue to do the things the system needs us to do, so that we sort of get a modicum of a reward. A lot of us are going to go and start to love ourselves and find that we just hate everything. We don't want to participate in anything, and we don't we swing way the other way, right? Well, I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to participate in any of this. The whole system is fucked. That's normal. For a lot of us, we're going to have to eventually find some middle ground of how we can exist within the system without giving our whole selves to it. Taking ourselves back as much as we can. And sometimes that's just like a mindset. We go to our mindless job and we say, but I'm going to be here for me while I'm here. I'm not going to reject me. I'm not going to abandon me. When I'm numbing out in front of the TV, I'm not going to reject me and I'm not going to abandon me. I'm going to assume innocence in myself. When we start to assume innocence in ourselves, we're going to eventually start to see the needs that we have, the wants that we have, the real source of our pain, so we can stop blaming ourselves and start identifying what's actually hurting. And then, like I say, that's how, when we can check out of the systems, we will. When we need to get upset about how the system is, that's what we get upset at. So we stop getting upset at ourselves. So again, we might still have pain, but at least we won't be suffering. Because remember what suffering is. Continuing to blame yourself for a pain that isn't your fault. Suffering is continuing to blame something as the cause of pain that isn't the cause of the pain. Continuing to try to fix something that isn't the cause of the pain. Stop trying to fix yourself. You are not the cause of pain. You have adapted. You are doing everything you possibly can, given what you were raised to believe, given what society is like. You are doing the best you can. The more you are compassionate with yourself, identify what your needs are, you may discover, I don't fit into the system. It doesn't work for me. I have to figure out a whole new different way, or I'm going to have to make compromises. That's all reality. But at least you won't be blaming yourself and trying to fit yourself into a box you are never going to fit into because the box is shitty. Loving ourselves does not mean we will never grow and change and evolve again. When we actually love ourselves, we will figure out where growth actually needs to happen. We will start to desire to become something specific from an internal place, not I need to be better, right? I need to be more. Like these vague, I need to find my purpose. This clearly isn't it. When our desires are vague, we're not operating from truth. When our solutions are vague, we're not operating from truth. When it's all so that I will be then good enough, we're not operating from truth. So where do we really feel insecure? And is it because of you or is it because of the system? Where are we really feeling inadequate? And is it because of you or is it conditioning? Where can you start to show up for what your needs are? If all you ever did was change what's wrong with me to what do I need right now, your entire world would change. The way that you see it anyways. The way that you interact with yourself. You are not inadequate right now. No matter what's lacking in your life, no matter what pain is going on in your life, it's not because you are inadequate. You're meeting your needs the best you know how. You're trying to survive in a system that's fucked up the best way you know how. You might have power to change it. You might be able to do different things. But you're only going to figure that out from loving yourself and showing up for yourself as good. Validating yourself, assuming innocence in yourself, starting from that place and working forward. There's no such thing as a bad person. There's no such thing as just a lazy, spoiled brat person. That's conditioning. So, you're not going to fuck your life up by approving of yourself right now. You're going to start to figure out your needs. You're going to start to figure out your wants. You may realize, yeah, society's not set up for me. So what are we going to do about that? How are you going to support yourself within what exists? How are you going to ask for help? How are we going to demand change? Stop blaming yourself. You are not the problem. Right? Society is telling you to keep suffering by blaming yourself for a thing that isn't your fault. You are doing everything you're doing for a good reason. When you unconditionally love and accept and approve of yourself, you're going to start to discover why. You're going to start to discover what you need. You're going to start to, right? And this might mean we need tools, we need therapy, we need support, we need books, we need other people. I'm not even saying that self-love is everything. But self-love will help you identify when you need therapy, and you will do it without shame. It will help you identify when you need community. It will help you identify when you need to reach out for something. It will help you identify when it's just like, I just don't have the capacity to reach for more right now. Other people are going and getting their lives, good for them, I can't do it. These are foundations for figuring stuff out. So please, stop blaming yourself. You are not the problem. You are conditioned. So if you start to love yourself, you're going to start to be able to see what your conditioning is, so you can start to do what needs to be done to help support yourself. Because you deserve support. The addict deserves support. The person who has the gabillions of dollars needs support. Something went weird. No one is winning in this system. It's not working. And we need to stop blaming ourselves. so that we can start to figure out how we can influence society to change to be something that actually works better. Because the way that we've been trying to solve society's problems for the last 100 years isn't working. Individual freedom isn't the answer. There's more to it. Okay? So that's the truth about self-love, as it is always the truth about self-love. It will help you see what isn't your fault. It will help you see what you can do about what you can do about. It will help you see what is fucked up in society and how you can opt out. And it's the biggest threat to the system we have right now. People who love themselves enough to say, enough is enough. I demand something else. I'm not going to participate. Okay? All right. So that's that. I only care a little bit, obviously. All right. Have a great week. Have a great day. Have a great night whenever you're watching this. And I'll see you next week.